Her CEO presents a daunting challenge to a black woman, tasking her with repairing an unfixable airplane engine. The outcome of this moment transformed the lives of everyone present. The stillness in the aerotech industry's auditorium was overwhelming. 200 individuals, engineers, executives, and journalists, watched with rapt attention as Richard Morrison, the CEO of the company, moved around Keisha Williams with the calculated grace of a predator stalking its target. "So, Ms. Williams," he drawled the word with clear disdain, "do you truly think you can resolve what my team from Harvard and MIT couldn't accomplish in 3 weeks?" Keisha stood still before the T-8000 turbofan engine, a $15 million marvel that had haunted aerotech for the last few months. At 34, she appeared entirely mismatched in that environment, devoid of any corporate attire, lacking visible credentials, simply a black woman who had arrived at the company an hour prior, seeking a conversation with Morrison. I stated that I could pinpoint the issue, and she responded with a serene demeanor, disregarding the soft chuckles that reverberated through the space. Morrison grinned with a deliberate malice. This situation had been orchestrated flawlessly by him. Upon learning that a woman had called, asserting she could resolve the T-8000 issue, he recognized an ideal chance for a grand display, absolutely. In a dramatic flourish, he declared, 30 minutes. If you stumble, and we both understand that you will, I hope this recording stands as a lesson to any other visionaries who believe they can squander our time. Smartphones surged right away. Dr. Stephen Walsh, the VP of Engineering, expressed his disapproval with a shake of his head. "Richard, this is absurd. We ought to refrain from providing her with a platform." "Allow her a chance," Morrison interjected, his eyes shining with a wicked glint. "It will be enlightening for all to observe the distinction between genuine skill and, well, whatever that may be." Keisha observed the engine in quiet contemplation for a brief moment. Within her, a tumultuous blend of anguish and resolve surged in her heart. She had identified that particular flaw the instant she stepped into the room. Beyond that, she was fully aware of who had instigated the issue and the reasons behind it. "Fascinating," she whispered, gently brushing her fingers over a particular part of the combustion system. "Revised injection system. Quite imaginative." Dr. Walsh scowled. How did she manage to pinpoint that change so swiftly? Weeks of relentless effort had led his team to uncover it. Morrison, engrossed in relishing his expected triumph, failed to recognize the precision of Keisha's remark. He announced, 28 minutes. It would be wise to consider an alternative strategy. In case this doesn't pan out, Keisha remained silent. Instead, a subtle shift occurred in her posture. The uncertainty vanished, supplanted by a self-assurance that caused a few of the more watchful onlookers to scowl. It felt like she had just reached a significant conclusion. She pulled out a compact smartphone from her pocket and swiftly tapped out a message. Only 3 words flickered on the screen. "It's time, Marcus." 500 miles distant in Washington, D.C., a man clad in a suit sat in a Pentagon office, a smile spreading across his face as he perused the message. Marcus Chun, once a colleague of Keisha's at NASA, had anticipated this moment for 3 long years. At last, he whispered as he opened a digital file labeled Ultra Confidential Project Phoenix. In the auditorium once more, Keisha tucked her phone away and fixed her gaze on Morrison. "Mr. Morrison, if I may, I would like to pose a question before we start. Could you share how you came across the original schematics for this engine?" The question struck Morrison with the force of a thunderclap. For a fleeting instant, his facade of superiority wavered. What led her to believe there were original schematics? That information was classified. That's not pertinent to the examination, he stammered. Yet Keisha had already redirected her focus to the engine, her hands moving with a precision and confidence that suggested an intimate familiarity with every screw in that machine. Indeed, she did. Dr. Walsh leaned in closer to his assistant and murmured, "How does she know precisely where to search? This is quite perplexing." Unbeknownst to them, Keisha Williams had devoted the past 3 years to carefully orchestrating this very moment. And the T-8000 engine wasn't merely a malfunctioning piece of machinery. It was the linchpin for the most catastrophic retribution the aerospace sector had ever witnessed. If you're captivated by this tale of retribution and fairness, make sure to subscribe to the channel, as what Keisha is about to disclose will not only unsettle Morrison, but also the whole American aerospace sector. There are 25 minutes left. Morrison approached the cameras, straightening his tie with a self-satisfied grin. Esteemed members of the media, I trust you are documenting every moment of this enlightening presentation. I desire for this recording to be distributed to every university nationwide as a demonstration of the consequences that arise when aspirations are mistaken for actual ability. Keisha persisted in her quiet task, her hands gliding over the components with a skill that caused Dr. Walsh to narrow his eyes in focus. In under 10 minutes, she pinpointed 3 crucial issues, shortcomings that his Harvard team had spent weeks uncovering. "What makes her aware of that?" murmured Walsh's assistant. "It's unfeasible for an individual lacking technical expertise." "Beginners." "Luck," Walsh responded, though a hint of doubt crept into his tone. At the Pentagon, Marcus Chun was diligently carrying out his role in the strategy. With Level 5 security clearance, he accessed the classified files on Project Phoenix, the covert military investigation into technology, leaks that he and Keisha had quietly initiated 3 years prior. "Colonel, I must speak with you at once," Marcus informed his superior. "I possess proof of corporate spying related to sensitive military technology." At Aerotech, Morrison's laughter grew increasingly boisterous for the audience. Observe her trembling hands. Observe her moment of uncertainty. That's the outcome when an inexperienced individual attempts to engage with genuine technology. Yet Keisha's trembling hands were meticulously adjusting the tiny components of the combustion system. She had pinpointed not just the flaws, but also the distinct markings that confirmed the unlawful origin of the technology. 3 years prior, Keisha had unearthed the initial hints of the theft when she recognized familiar specifications in an Aerotech patent. They were pieces of her own investigation at NASA, a venture that had been terminated following a supposed security violation. For months, she had quietly delved into her investigation, cultivating a web of connections throughout the aerospace sector. Marcus, maintaining his role at NASA and leveraging his military ties, emerged as her crucial ally upon the revelation that the scale of the technology theft far exceeded their initial assumptions. "Everything about the system is corrupt," Marcus had remarked during one of their clandestine gatherings. "They appropriate military research, market it to allied corporations, and subsequently leverage that technology in government contracts. It's an impeccable loop of deceit." Keisha had offered a frosty smile. "Let's shatter that pattern." In the present moment, Morrison exuded such confidence that he started to make biting jokes at the audience's expense. "Perhaps we ought to provide a guidebook, or maybe an introductory physics class." The crowd erupted in laughter, yet a few keen-eyed engineers started to pick up on unsettling nuances. Keisha was not referring to any manuals or schematics. She was intimately familiar with that engine, as though she had crafted it with her own hands. Dr. Walsh experienced a sudden shiver as Keisha deftly extracted a particular component, a motion he had witnessed only once before in the NASA lab years ago, executed by Dr. Keisha Williams before her enigmatic vanishing from the public eye. "Utterly inconceivable," he whispered. "It's impossible for her to be. Just 20 minutes left." Morrison's phone buzzed to life. An official notification from the Pentagon, Mr. Morrison.Aerotech Industries finds itself facing a federal investigation concerning potential industrial espionage activities. Representatives will arrive at your location in 30 minutes. The hue vanished from Morrison's face with such swiftness that it seemed almost like an illusion. He glanced anxiously at Keisha, who had paused her work and was now observing him with a smile that failed to illuminate her eyes. "What seems to be the issue, Mr. Morrison?" she inquired with a serene demeanor. This is a trap," he stuttered, his confidence dissipating like mist. Keisha returned to her tasks. "A snare would exist if I found myself here under misleading circumstances. However, I made it clear who I am, someone capable of pinpointing the issue with your engine." She halted, locking her gaze with intent. What I failed to mention was the reason I can recognize it. Dr. Walsh advanced, his voice trembling. You are Keisha Williams. Dr. Keisha Williams vanished from NASA 3 years ago following the events surrounding Project Meridian. A heavy hush enveloped the auditorium. The smartphones kept on recording, but they were now documenting something entirely different from the spectacle of humiliation that Morrison had envisioned. Keisha beamed for the first time since stepping into the room. Exactly right, Dr. Walsh. So this engine is beyond repair. It stems from my appropriated findings from Project Meridian, research that was unlawfully sold to Aerotech following my expulsion from NASA. Morrison flinched, as though he had been hit. That can't be done. This technology was acquired legitimately from Northrop Dynamic, which acquired it from Lockheed. It was acquired from Daniel Walsh, who is the cousin of Dr. Walsh present here. Keisha quietly indicated the chief engineer, whose expression suggested he was on the verge of collapsing. Illicit cash exchanged from one grasp to another until it found its way to this very spot. The auditorium erupted in a flurry of astonished murmurs. Morrison attempted to assert himself once more, yet his voice emerged as a mere squeak. These, for allegations that lack evidence, there is no evidence to support your claim. Keisha paused once more, her gaze sweeping across the entire audience. Her demeanor had transformed entirely. She had transformed from the modest woman who had first stepped into the room. She was the exceptional mind who transformed aerospace propulsion, only to be betrayed and silenced. Mr. Morrison, in these 30 minutes I went beyond merely fixing your engine. I meticulously recorded each element, every unauthorized alteration, and every indication that demonstrates this technology was taken unlawfully. And all of this, she raised her smartphone, was streamed live to the FBI. For a moment, as laughter echoed around her due to her unassuming appearance and doubts clouded their judgment of her capabilities, they believed they were about to see yet another black woman conforming to expectations. However, those observing intently would have realized that it wasn't anxiety driving her hands to move with such accuracy. It was the restrained strength of an individual who had transformed 3 years of quiet degradation into a meticulously crafted plan for the most impactful retribution the aerospace sector had ever witnessed. Just 15 minutes left. Morrison attempted to assert his authority over the situation, yet his voice emerged strained and filled with urgency. These are unfounded allegations. It's essential to have evidence before placing your trust in her words. Keisha paused her tasks and fixed her gaze intently on Morrison. Proof. She gently tapped her smartphone. Marcus, initiate the broadcast. Suddenly, the screens in the auditorium illuminated with confidential documents, correspondence, funds, transfer between banks. Confidential agreements, 3 years of careful inquiry unveiled in real time. A $50 million bank transfer from Northrop Dynamic to Daniel Walsh, cousin of Dr. Stephen Walsh, echoed through the speakers as Marcus's voice resonated powerfully. March 15th, 2020. 3 days. After Keisha Williams was compelled to depart from NASA, Dr. Walsh reeled as though he had received a gut-wrenching blow. Negative. That's not my cousin. I was completely unaware of this. Certainly not, Keisha responded with sharp sarcasm. It's merely a coincidence that you were part of the team that integrated my technology here at Aerotech. On the display, additional proof emerged. Messages. Exchanged on WhatsApp between Daniel Walsh and Richard Morrison. Captured audio snippets. Transferring funds to accounts located overseas, a realm of deceit constructed upon the pilfering of Keisha's findings. Morrison was clearly perspiring at this point. Cease this transmission. This constitutes a breach of personal privacy. Access is restricted. Indeed, we do. Keisha's smile was icy. A federal warrant was issued just 2 hours ago. The FBI is currently in the process of seizing all Aerotech files. As though her words had conjured them, federal agents made their entrance into the auditorium. Somber attire, gleaming insignias, and stoic faces. The crowd instinctively parted as they approached Morrison. Richard Morrison, you are hereby placed under arrest for charges including industrial espionage, money laundering, and conspiracy to defraud the federal government, declared Special Agent Carter. Morrison retreated until he reached the wall. "I hold the position of CEO at Aerotech. It's not as simple as that." "We can, and we are," Carter replied, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. "Your financial accounts are currently inaccessible. Your possessions have been confiscated. Your company is currently under federal receivership." Dr. Walsh attempted to make a discreet exit through the side door, yet another agent blocked his path. "Is this Dr. Stephen Walsh? We also have a few inquiries for you." "I was unaware," Walsh exclaimed, his scholarly demeanor utterly shattered. "My cousin kept the source of the technology to himself." Keisha moved in closer, her voice soft yet cutting. "Stephen, you participated in 14 meetings over the past 2 years, where you focused on how to modify the Meridian design. I possess recordings of each one of them." Walsh's expression morphed into one of sheer horror. "How could you possibly have access to my own security systems that I embedded in the original technology?" Keisha smiled, but there was no trace of amusement in her expression. "Each engine crafted from my design incorporates a concealed transponder. Each adjustment, every trial and all discussions around the engines were meticulously documented and promptly transmitted to secure servers." Morrison, still in handcuffs, gazed at her, his expression a blend of loathing and hopelessness. "You orchestrated this situation for us. This was orchestrated from the outset. No, Richard, you put yourself in this position when you chose to embarrass me in front of others." Keisha waved her hand towards the cameras that were still capturing the moment. "I simply aimed to recover my stolen technology quietly, yet you provided me with something far greater, a global platform to reveal precisely the kind of man you truly are." The auditorium screens now displayed a harrowing montage: Morrison ridiculing female candidates during interviews, making racist jokes at executive meetings, and dismissing qualified black employees. 3 years of recorded actions being revealed all at once. "This is going live on CNN, BBC, and every major news channel in the world," Marcus declared over the loudspeakers. "The Aerotech scandal is currently trending globally." Morrison made one final desperate move. "Keisha, we can find a solution to this. Any sum of money, any role within the organization, whatever you desire." Keisha completed the final tweak on the T-8000 engine. The magnificent roar of the machine resonated through the auditorium, a sound she had not experienced in 3 long years. Her vengeance was fulfilled, yet her parting words struck the deepest. "Richard, 3 years ago, you and others like you led me to believe that I had no value, that my research was insignificant, that I should silently endure being forgotten." She hesitated, allowing the gravity of her statements to resonate. "In this era of worldwide connectivity, you've sacrificed more than just your autonomy. You've forfeited the one thing you genuinely cherished, the esteem of the realm you believed. You dominated." As Morrison and Walsh were led away in utter disgrace, their careers shattered and reputations irreparably tarnished, reporters swarmed Keisha with inquiries. With a steady hand, she adjusted the tool and composed herself as she approached the exit. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the sole Hispanic executive at Aerotech, approached with tears glistening in her eyes. "Thank you, Dr. Williams. We appreciate you confirming that our perceptions were indeed accurate. We were not exaggerating when we discussed the situation at hand." Keisha nodded, fully grasping the situation. "Elena, solitude was never your companion. With Morrison no longer in the picture, perhaps, this company can finally realize its true potential." For a moment, gazing at the remnants of the empire of arrogance that Morrison had constructed, a question lingered in the atmosphere. Could 3 years of careful planning not only topple the wrongdoers, but also revolutionize an entire industry that had muted voices like hers for decades? Half a year later, the headline in the Wall Street Journal was striking. "Aerotech, now under new management, shatters records for efficiency and innovation." The image captured Dr. Keisha Williams, currently the Chief Scientific Officer of the company, standing next to Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the newly appointed CEO, as they inaugurated the nation's most cutting-edge research laboratory. Morrison, on the other hand, was enduring an 8-year sentence for industrial espionage. His bank accounts stayed locked, his possessions sold off to compensate the victims of his deceptions. The individual who once ruled a corporate dynasty now found himself confined alongside fellow white-collar offenders, his hubris dismantled by the harsh truths of federal incarceration. Dr. Walsh found himself stripped of not just his position, but also his medical license. After the extent of his involvement in the scheme was revealed, no reputable company in the aerospace industry would consider hiring him. He now toiled as an insurance salesman in a quaint town. His scholarly pursuits turned to dust. During a CNN interview, Marcus Chin remarked on the irony that efforts to undermine the most brilliant woman in the aerospace industry ultimately resulted in her gaining control of one of the largest companies in the sector. At Aerotech, the change was evident in every corridor. The organization that previously employed just 8% black individuals now proudly showcased a workforce that was 40% black. Half of the leadership roles were occupied by women. The scholarship initiative for students hailing from underserved communities, established by Keisha, has already made a positive impact on over 200 young individuals. Dr. Williams didn't merely rescue our company, Elena remarked at the quarterly press conference. She transformed the very essence of excellence in engineering. Our designs have achieved a remarkable 60% increase in efficiency, our costs have decreased by 40%, and our reputation has been fully revitalized. The T-8000 engine, now known as the Phoenix series, to commemorate the company's resurgence, established itself as the benchmark in the industry. Orders flooded in from every corner of the globe, and Aerotech emerged as the most rapidly expanding aerospace company in America. Keisha maintained a straightforward routine. She arrived early at the lab, collaborated closely with her diverse team of engineers, and consistently dedicated an hour to mentor aspiring young scientists. Her desk remained devoid of framed diplomas. She understood that true competence is shown through results, not by the papers displayed on the wall. The EI's finest form of retribution, she remarked in a lecture at MIT for engineering students, is not to bring ruin upon those who have wronged you. It's about creating something remarkable, leaving them to reflect for the rest of their lives on their attempts to hinder genuine excellence. The crowd, primarily made up of women and students from diverse backgrounds, burst into applause. Many were moved to tears as they finally encountered someone who truly grasped their struggles and had demonstrated that overcoming them was indeed possible. During that same week, Daniel Walsh, the former fiancé who had initiated the entire betrayal, attempted to reach out to Keisha via multiple intermediaries. He found himself entangled in lawsuits for fraud across several states and felt compelled to discuss the past. Keisha's legal representatives conveyed her message succinctly: the past is behind us. Concentrate on what lies ahead. Dr. Elena Rodriguez observed Keisha diligently working in the lab, frequently contemplating how Morrison's effort to belittle a woman had unexpectedly transformed into the company's redemption. At times, she noted to Marcus, hunters choose the incorrect target, and when that moment arrives, the pursuer transforms into the pursued. Keisha's narrative has motivated countless women and underrepresented groups in the fields of science and technology. Documentaries were produced, books were crafted, and universities established scholarships in her honor. Yet for her, the most profound triumph was straightforward: to labor in tranquility, enveloped by individuals who appreciated skill more than superficiality. Morrison, confined to his cell, had restricted access to the news, yet he would occasionally catch wind of the triumphs of his former company. The irony was crushing. The woman he had sought to publicly shame now commanded the empire he had forfeited. Each uplifting headline regarding Aerotech served as a painful reminder of how his hubris had obliterated not just his career, but his very sense of self. Dignity, Keisha remarked in her final interview on national television, is an essence that cannot be stripped from you by anyone. They may appropriate your findings, they might challenge your credentials, and they could attempt to undermine your reputation in public. However, when you possess a clear understanding of your identity and value, the truth will ultimately prevail in the end. 3 years of quiet suffering evolved into years filled with acknowledgement and admiration. The girl who once envisioned soaring through the cosmos had discovered something far more profound. the power to assist others in realizing their own seemingly unattainable aspirations. If this tale of determination and fairness resonated with you, consider subscribing to the channel for more narratives that demonstrate how genuine skill inevitably emerges, even when faced with overwhelming odds against it.